Okay, back from the break. Okay, so I've set up the first segment of the show, really giving you a doozy to begin with. 27, okay. Now, as I said at the get-go, I'm not playing 27 to be a smarty pants, okay? I'm playing 27 because it's history. It's an 11th century Hebrew rhythm. Someone dances to this, okay? I don't know how drunk they are, but they dance to 27. Okay, so there you go. Let me break it down. What happens now is that this little segment you could subtitle subdivisions, okay? So what happens is if you just try and count to 27, you're almost doomed to failure because not only is it crazy by my own admission, but there's numbers that have 2 syllables to them, seven, and things like that. So you get caught up with just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 27, you know, that kind of thing. So what you do is you subdivide it. Now, this rhythm is subdivided into 4/8, 12/8, 4/8 again, and then 7/8. Okay. So what you have is 1. I'll do it with bass. 1, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. That's what goes on. It's in 27. So you've got a subdivision there, okay? And the thing about things like 27, when am I ever going to need that? Well, you can start to think of groups like some of the prog rock giants like King Crimson. You can think of some of the people like Frank Zappa and Dream Theater, all sorts of different people. It's literally everywhere. And what happens is it isn't just there for prog rock. What I did with that version of it was sort of turn it into almost like the kind of beat that probably Vinnie Colaiuta would play when he was with Frank Zappa. And we're talking about subdivisions here, you see. So what happens with a number that's crazy like 27, it ain't so crazy when you know that it goes back a millennia in history. If you go to any of the Eastern European countries, you're going to deal with odd time signatures like 5/4 or 5/8, 7/8, all that sort of business, you know, sort of thing. And one of the things I'd like to talk about now is essentially how you get to these odd times, okay? Now, when we talk about the classical time signature definitions, like simple time and compound time, essentially what happens is simple time, as I said in the last segment, is divisible by 2 and compound is divisible by 3. What happens is that odd times are pretty much all made up of the combination of those 2 numbers, okay? So what happens is that a typical 5 is 2 and 3, okay? So you might have, as a sticking pattern, I might go right, left, left. So I might have... Don't bump, Hippopotamus, hippopotamus. It's always great to get a phrase. You count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you end up becoming an auctioneer. But one of the things that is brilliant, I've been looking at it for quite a while. I don't use it that much. I use words like how many syllable words. Like for 5, you have hippopotamus, 5 syllables, right? Hippopotamus, hippopotamus. Make up your own. But one of the great things about Indian rhythm is the konakol, and I hope that's how you pronounce it. And what happens is that you have takadimita, takadimita, takata, 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 and all this sort of stuff. And last week I just spent a lot of time listening to a brilliant lady, Anushka Shankar, Ravi Shankar's daughter. And, oh boy, you know, some of the rhythms and in there, but it's everywhere in Indian culture. But what happens is that you find things to work up, tuck, you know, all that sort of stuff. So hippopotamus, and all this sort of business. When you get to 7, it is 2, 2, and 3, if you want to. It can be the other way around. It can be 3, 2, and 2. Now this gets us into Greek music. You can have kashalama, you can have lots of different rhythms there. I'm not going to go into a Greek rhythm show. I'll leave that for a specialist. But what I want to talk about is making odd times not so odd, okay, sort of thing. So when you're dealing with, say, a 7, I've always used the name of a beautiful Italian movie actress in Gina Lollobrigida. So you get Gina Lollobrigida, okay? So Gina Lollobrigida, Gina Lollobrigida, Gina Lollobrigida, hippopotamus, Gina Lollobrigida, Gina Lollobrigida. And then you have you mix it up. As you could see, I threw in a hippopotamus in between all the Ginas. So what happens is when, say, I'm playing something like, my old band used to do Pound for a Brown by Zappa sort of thing, which is in 7/8. And what you'd have is a couple of 7/8 modules, if you will. So I would go right, left, right, left, right, left, left. Okay. There's another one. Gina Lollobrigida, 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 like that. Gina Lollobrigida, Gina Lollobrigida, Gina Lollobrigida, Gina Lollobrigida. There you go. Gina Lollobrigida. Okay, so that's a 7, you see. Now, one of the funny things, while I'm talking about Frank Zappa a little bit, is that my old band, the Instrumental, used to also play Zoot Allures, you know, one of the beloved instrumentals from Frank Zappa. And one of the things that happens inside Zoot Allures is, for all intents and purposes, there's a figure that the whole band has to play that, for all intents and purposes, could be written out as triplets. So it could be 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a... But it ain't, okay? What happens is that it's actually a grouping of 7, then 5, written as a polyrhythm of 12/8 or 12 against 8 polyrhythm, okay? Now, you could think Frank's being a bit tricky here, but basically the figure is like that of a triplet, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a... But really... like that sort of stuff as a triplet feel, but it's subdivided into 7 and 5, okay? Gina Lollobrigida, hippopotamus, 1, okay? There's that kind of thing. So what goes on is that you could be playing all the right notes in a song, but it keeps coming out sounding wrong because you've got the inflections incorrect with the rest of the band. I remember a rehearsal where we were starting to get a little bit of nip, 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 nip. But I'm playing the right notes. I know you are, but your accent, all this sort of stuff. And you go back and listen to it, and after a while you go, ah. And then you look at the music, the actual transcription, I see, all that sort of business. And this is one of these things about subdivisions, and in funny kinds of ways, the movement of notes around an instrument, in this particular case a drum set, and still being able to come back on one succinctly whilst still maintaining the flow of the piece, even though it's in some cockamamie time signature or in some crazy rhythmic kind of rate, okay, that sort of stuff. And that's one of the things that time signatures, polymeters, all of this sort of business give you, okay? So once again, more of this after the break. I'll continue on. This is all a flow. It goes into basically an hour show, roughly, maybe about 50-minute show. And I'll be back after the break, yeah? No worries.